everyone. You saw the thumbnail, you read the title, let's get into this. Ænima is the second studio release by American metal band Tool, releasing September 17th, 1996, debuting at number 2 on Billboard's Top 200 as well as going on to be certified triple platinum. To this day, it's regarded as one of the best metal albums of all time, and is honestly, pretty fucking good, not gonna lie. Members at the time of creation were Maynard James Keenan on vocals, Adam Jones on guitar, Justin Chancellor, a new addition, on bass, and Danny Carey on drums. A few things to keep in mind about this album and Tool as a whole is, well, two things. First, they're a very secretive group. They like their privacy, and so they don't talk very often about their creation process, nor really what their music means. So, while they will give vague hints at what certain tracks mean, the larger image of most albums is left rather up to us to figure out. Hence the reason I'm making this video. The other thing to keep in mind is the complexity that they're known for. Like their next album, Lateralis, this album is chock full of insane fucking concepts that I barely even have the understanding to talk about, let alone like convey in full detail what they mean. So bear with me for most of this. I'm gonna try my best, but like, if you want to understand most of this stuff, you need like a degree or a lot of time on your hands. And with that, let's get into the first track, Stinkfist. Contrary to popular belief and what I'll say on the internet, it's actually not about anal fisting, but rather the desensitization of society and the perspective in which most people in society view differing topics, such as songs titled Stinkfist. The track opens with a industrial banging that transitions into a guitar shredding and crescendos at a full riff, drumline, and a whispered yet sensual Maynard, proposing ideas that are up to interpretation to say the least. Lines like "boredom's not a burden anyone should bear" pair very well with "something has to change, an undeniable dilemma," but they don't necessarily answer what these things are. What is this boredom stemming from? What is this undeniable dilemma? Is it societal change? Is it sexual gratification? It's up to you to figure out. These ideas continue into the chorus as the drums crash in while Maynard laments, "This may hurt a little, but it's something you'll get used to. Relax, slip away," which obviously could be taken as an interpretation of anal fisting, or you can take it as the interpretation of societal change being incremental and a painful process at times. Things must change, but change doesn't always come at the easiest expense. Sometimes things hurt, and instead we need to relax and allow these things to almost wash over us. Remember, pain is only an illusion. The thrashing nature of the track, paired with Maynard's androgynous yet sensual tone, allows for both interpretations to shine through rather well. You can take this as a, piece of revolutionary music where we need to revolt and stand against the society that binds and chains us, or we can view it as a need to be sexually liberated and free. Either way, it works very well, especially with lines like "what's become of subtlety," asking whether we need this level of sexual depravity, or do we need a society that's so depraved that we allow things like violence to become normalized. The second track on the album is Eulogy, one of the more vital pieces when discussing the themes and topics, though seems to have been pushed aside when it comes to conversation. Some think this track is about comedian Bill Hicks, who died 2 years previous to the album's recording and plays an instrumental role in some of the themes and topics discussed later on, but the track itself has been clarified to be about L. Ron Hubbard, the founder of the Church of Scientology, and so let's get into it. The first 2 minutes of the track consist of what sound like a xylophone, some synth strings, and a minor drum line, only to break into a full frontal riff and Maynard's lyrics about a man who is presumably dead. He states that he had a lot to say, he had a lot of nothing to say, as well as going on to maybe speak to him personally, saying, "You told us how you weren't afraid to die. Not all martyrs see divinity, but at least you tried." The lines like this make it very clear that he's talking about L. Ron Hubbard, who spoke a lot, but as Maynard points out, never really pointed at his own heart when he said any of those things, indicating that Yeah, he was just talking a bunch of bullshit. The murky sound of the track paired with the tiny bits of industrial sound like the xylophone allow for this condemnation and critical analysis of Scientology and L. Ron Hubbard to really shine through, especially with lines like, "Get off your fucking cross, we need space for the next fool martyr." You really understand what he's saying. He's saying that he knows that these are cycles, that religious fervor is not something that ends once one individual dies, but rather is transformed and transmutated into a new form of religion or a just new person. Insert picture of Tom Cruise. While the track may seem very straightforward and comprehensible on the surface, it's the nuance at which it evolves into the rest of the album that I really enjoy. Also, just, the intense and thrashing sound that persists from the first track and onward. It's a good continuation of the album, and lines like "To ascend you must die" allow for subtle hints at what may come. Third track, H, is where a lot of the more conspiratorial threads of the album begin, which says something, seeing as the first song was about anal fisting and the second one Scientology. But it also connects to a lot of ideas that may be presented on future tracks while not saying it directly. So the track opens with devastating guitar line, each note played drenched in reverb and occasionally broken up by a single hi-hat, only to lead into a smooth riff and drum line with Maynard continuing to whisper over his lyrics. While the first hit takes 2.5 minutes to hit, it hits all the same, letting all the instrumentation crash in while Maynard lyrically stays afloat above it all. While Maynard maintains his whispered yet sensual tone on the track, it's changed from aggressive and outward to more defensive, as he states, "And I feel it coming over like a storm again." This, paired with the industrial melodic sounds of the track, create an interesting contrast of the decaying and desensitized society we live in and the nature or soul we might have lost to embrace it. This, paired with the mantra "considerately killing me," could be taken to mean the bondage of society slowly killing us from the inside. While this is one of the few tracks Maynard himself has tried to explain as a devil and angel on your shoulder, or two friends taking the place of these, supposed beings, I don't think it works as well in the context of the larger album, especially with lines like "recalling all the times I have died and will die." It seems to be alluding to this necessary evolution or change that must happen both within individuals and society at large. There is a third interpretation to this track of heroin abuse and overdosing. The storm mentioned could be a new high or relapse. The "considerately killing me" could be a direct reference to the fact that the drug is killing him, and the snake reference could be temptation. All three interpretations of the track, mine, Maynard's, and this third one that's, I don't know, somewhere on the internet, are all valid, but at the end of the day, I think only one really persists throughout the entire album, which, Fourth track is "Useful Idiot," and it's meant to make vinyl listeners think their record is skipping. It's a dick thing to do, yeah, but this is the Troll album, so you should expect stuff like this. Plus, the first song was a joke song about anal fisting, so if you're taking anything here that seriously, what are you really doing? Despite what I just said, 46 and 2 is both a very serious and big brain track, as this is where the themes of evolution first come to the forefront, so buckle up. The title, as well as some of the lyrics on the track, directly mention the evolutionary theory of 46 plus 2 chromosomes. Currently, as humans, we have 46 chromosomes, and the concept is that 2 more will be added to our genes and therefore allow us to be higher beings. This is also being paired with Carl Jung's interpretation of the shadow, an embodiment of all negativity within us humans, and so you can tell the track is both big brain and trying to purposely fuck with you. Enough science bullshit, let's talk about the track, which opens with a smooth guitar line slowly being layered with drums and bass, giving way to a full proper verse with Maynard's continuing whispered conversation of evolution as the instrumentation continues to build. Again, it takes almost 2 minutes for the first chorus to hit, but it hits all the same as everything crashes and allows Maynard to continue atop it like usual. The imagery on this track is another thing of note, as its gory yet determined view on evolution is honestly quite astonishing. Lines such as digging down through my muscles looking for a clue, or I've been crawling on my belly clearing out what could have been, create this idea that the human body must be dissected and torn apart to establish this higher being, or perhaps to find this shadow so that it can be embraced and we can fully transform. The metamorphosis mentioned on the track is quite literally Maynard telling you that this is evolution, this is what needs to happen, and it's gonna hurt to get there. Message to Harry Manback is easily the most violent and visceral track on the album, which is funny because the title is a reference to Bill Hicks. The track is apparently an audio message left by Maynard's roommate's friend at the time, who had been staying with them, eaten all their food and ran up their phone bill, so he got kicked out. The track is really dark for some reason, like the setting with the piano and the whispered yet angry tone. It allows for the lyrics, which are honestly just kind of horrific, to really paint this picture that Maynard either fucking sucked or this guy fucking sucked. Like Stinkfist, Hooker with a Penis is a track meant to make you think one thing and then means another once you get into things. It does not actually have anything to do with a prostitute having a penis. It is actually about the commodification of the music industry and how Maynard and Tool as a whole have apparently sold out long ago, which kind of makes it really funny in retrospect because, like, imagine looking at this album for the first time, seeing Hooker with a Penis, getting really excited that it's going to be something fucking weird, and then it's just capitalism is bad. The track opens with a reverb-drenched guitar giving way to crisp drums and a slightly distorted Maynard singing about a boy wearing 501s and a dope Beastie tee. This intense thrashing tempo is maintained throughout the track, going in and out of every chorus with ease as Maynard laments, so you can point that fucking finger up your ass. The song is clearly a condemnation of fans who think the band sold out, especially given the fact that this is their second album, and I don't think their first one was nearly as acclaimed publicly as this one. It's a weird thing for people to be mad about, especially in the 90s when things like the internet were not prevalent, so like you were doing things on radio or TV. Sure, Tool had airplay, but they were still a largely underground band at the time. This album was the one they came out on, and it's kind of funny that the song Condemning People is one of the most anthemic and, I think, radio friendly on the album. While the song is easily a condemnation of dumb fanboys, it's also a condemnation of capitalism and a showcase of the exploitation of consumers, with lines such as, "And all you read and wear or see and hear on TV is a product begging for your fat ass dirty dollar," make it kind of clear that yeah, no, the world around you is not doing you any good. It's just begging for your money, especially with lines such as buy, send more money. He's telling you, literally, this is all they want from you. They want your money, and that's it. While on the surface, Intermission seems like a joke interlude, it's actually just an intro to the track Jimmy, which is a sequel to a song from Undertow titled Prison Sex, which is about overcoming abuse. So yeah, trigger warning on that one. The track opens with a continuation of the line from Intermission, now played on guitar, before slowly descending into a slow tempo with Maynard's whispered lyrics and a drum line in the background. The instrumentation on this track isn't as impressive as others, though it does have some showcases, as the breakdown at around 240 is quite nice with the layered bass and guitar. The straightforward instrumentation allows for Maynard's lyrics about remorse, guilt, and overcoming trauma much better, in my opinion, as when you can understand lines such as, "Where the hell have I been? Sleeping lost and numb. I'm so glad I found you. I'm wide awake and heading home," hit much harder when you hear them in full emphasis, in my opinion. The track also mentions multiple ideas of alternative selves, such as the older and younger, ideas of divinity and light, all of which are relatively new to this track, but maintain concepts and themes from others and those continuing. Die Ihr von Satan is a baking recipe recited over sampled applause, industrial sounds, and general chaos. It's another troll track in the same vein as Hooker with a Penis and Stinkfist, meant to elicit some sort of reactionary reaction within the viewer. listener, and obviously it's getting so because people think it's, I don't know, some Hitler type shit or something. Push It opens with this disharmonious electronic swirling effect before giving way into the main riff of the song, which is just meaty up front and right where you want it to be. This also leads into Maynard's lyrics of "Take care not to make me enter. If I do, we both may disappear," which gives the track this ambiguous, mysterious, and dangerous feeling to it, allowing the long runtime of 9 minutes to feel rather short in comparison, especially with breakdowns such as the 7-minute mark, where the drums and guitar can feel almost at odds, but yet so harmonious at the same time. Repeated pushing and shoving me, paired with lines like "she didn't mean to push it on me," make it clear that this track is about an abusive relationship, which makes lines like "if I say might fade like a sigh if I stay, you minimize my movement anyway" much more depressing, because he's telling this person that he feels threatened and in danger staying, and they don't care. If anything, they use it as a way to abuse him even more, and it's hard to listen to. However, it's clear that Maynard knows that this is wrong, as he states, "Alive when you're touching me, alive when you're shoving me down, but I'd trade it all just for a little peace of mind," with peace of mind being shouted for emphasis that he's officially over this and he's going to break away, even if it means the death of him, the death of both of them. The end of the song is where we see both the instrumentation and the message come to a head, with lines such as "there is no love and fear" being shouted at the top of Maynard's lungs, as if he's trying to literally drill this concept into the listener's head that love cannot exist within fear. This also makes lines like "remember I will always love you as I claw your fucking throat away, it will end no other way" much more impactful, as he's saying that he cannot love this person if they're so terrible to him, if they're so abusive to him, and he knows that the only way he'll ever escape that, if he'll ever find love again, is to kill this person. It's dark, depressing, and yet completely rational, which is kind of weird and probably says something about me as a person. The second to last interlude, Cicero's Some Ability, begins with a baby crying and then breaks away into an ambient section with some indistinct whispering in the background. The title is based off the math equation Cicero's Summutation, which I will read verbatim because I'm not a mathematician. In mathematic analysis, the Cicero's Summutation assigns values to infinite sums that are not necessarily convergent in the usual sense. What I've gathered that to mean is that just because something equals infinity does not inherently mean the value is infinite. I don't know what that means in the meaning of the full album because I'm not a math person, but if anything, I'd have to say that the baby is in relation to evolution, because children are mentioned multiple times in connection to evolution. Two things. Ænima and Ænima are two different words, despite the fact that they're spelled almost identically. These words are also combinations of two other words, the Latin word for soul, anima, which is used by Carl Jung to describe one's life force, and enema, the procedure in which they put fluids in your ass in hospitals. Ænima opens with the repeated "ah" sound before dropping into a full riff in Maynard's lyrics about how much he hates LA, describing it as a three-ring circus sideshow of freaks. So you get the idea that he really fucking hates this place. The instrumentation is perfect on this track, being both thudding and abrasive at the same time, allowing his disdain for LA to come into full view, especially with lyrics like "flush it all away." You really get the sense that he's waiting for this, and he's been waiting. One thing to keep in mind about this track is that it manages to convey all three themes very well. The trolling, the disdain for Scientology, and the need for evolution, again in the societal sense. The line "fuck L. Ron Hubbard and fuck all his clones" obviously states that the trolling comes in the form of all the shit he talks about LA and fretting for your phones, your lawyers, your car, all your bullshit. And the evolution comes in the sense that it needs to be flushed away. The song is literally about a wave coming and destroying the city of LA. That way it creates a bay in Arizona, a reference to Bill Hicks' studio, Arizona Bay. Ænima also has some of the best instrumentation in the entire album, as the bass line during the "fret for your" section is absolutely killer, and the choruses hit so hard, especially even the low points when he's simply whispering that he hopes that his mom will please flush it all away, mom in this instance being a reference to Mother Earth. The moment you've all been waiting for. I have an insane theory, one no one would believe and even fewer might give the light of day, but I think Ions is the most important track on the album, perhaps only beaten by Third Eye. Let me explain. If you haven't noticed, each track has a central climax, not just sonically, but within the lyrics as well. Stinkfist is taking of the hand, Eulogy has the passing of L. Ron Hubbard, H has the coming of the storm, 46 and 2 has the shadow and its overcoming, Jimmy has the passing through the light, Push It has the killing of the abusive partner, and Ænima has the coming of the flood. I believe these are all meant to be interchangeable, as Ion builds its winding winds into a full-fledged storm, drowning out the Ion as it thrashes into space, only to give way to a new ambient undertone. This is about to be the most insane leap of logic of all time, but I believe this storm is the one mentioned throughout each track, with the Ion representing multiple things from society to actual neurons to individuals. That's why when the storm builds, the Ion slows and is almost drowned out, as the transition is typically portrayed as violent and difficult, but not impossible. We weather the storm, enduring the most, and what happens to us on the other side, just like the new ambient undertone, we're changed, different, and perhaps even better. It's a sonic metaphor for the metamorphosis proposed throughout the album, and Third Eye goes on to solidify this notion. Also, there seems to be another frequency with the new ambient tone, which may allude to the adding of chromosomes in 46 and 2. That's what I've been building this entire video up to, and I really hope you at least see what I'm going for, because, like, if this meant nothing, then I'm just gonna cry myself to sleep like I'm going to anyway. But that's not all, folks. We still have one more song to get through, Third Eye, which opens with a Bill Hicks sketch where he says that all great artists are real fucking high on drugs, which is both funny and true. And it also complements the lyrics later in the song, which are prying open my third eye. The concept of this song is clearly evolution, though it kind of makes it obvious that evolution can't happen through genealogy, which is kind of funny. It's proposing that it can only happen through psychedelic and hallucinogenic openings, as in literally doing drugs. While this is the closing track, that doesn't mean it doesn't work as a continuation of others as well, with references to other songs such as In and Out relating to Stinkfist, Child's Rhyme referencing 46 and 2, and So Good to See You, I've Missed You So Much relating to Jimmy. This is all compounded once you get to probably the single best collection of lines on the album, which is as follows. I stick my hand into the shadow to pull the pieces from the sand, which I attempt to reassemble, to see just who I might have been. I do not recognize the vessel, but the eyes seem so familiar. This is the showcase of evolution on the macro scale, the new figure looking through the rubble at what might have been, only to not recognize it. It's a cool showcase of the idea coming full form, as well as just, I don't know, sounding cool to read. Plus, lines like chasing the tail of dogma make fun of us current people, as we're still chasing the same ideological, philosophical, and religious concepts, despite the fact that they've been in place for thousands of years at this point. That doesn't even touch on the sound of the song, which is both industrial yet math rock at the same time. The first third has the more math rock orientated sound of Lateralis, whereas the second third of the song and onward just devolves into industrial guitar and banging, with Maynard shouting in these distorted voices, both the In and Out and the Prying Open My Third Eye. It's a good contrast of sound and shows the before as the industrial and the after as the math rock. One we're trying to ascend to and the other we're trying to escape. Overall, Ænima is one of my favorite albums. I love the contrast between the humor and the serious and the necessary, the need for evolution, the need to dissolve things like Scientology and conformative religion, and the need to just laugh sometimes. It's a cool album, and I honestly want everyone to listen to it at some point, even though I know this video is already long enough as is, and the album's only longer. That being said, I want to thank you for watching. Like I said, please go listen to the album, and I'll see you next time.